A bit of bullying, nothing too severe. When I was 7 years old, my dad pushed me towards doing martial arts.
Presenting Tim Wilde.
Not sure what Tim's going to do.
As I did karate from the age of 7.
Really be impressed with Wilde.
This fight camp, preparing for Mike Hamill, going for Chicago. Mike's a really good wrestler. He's a cardio-based wrestler.
Week 5 of fight camp here today with Nathan Epps. We've got a striking session, specific kind of one-to-one work, just working on the game plan and just working on my striking overall. Here at Gym Unity in Tamworth, nice little gym, got our own little private area where basically we just get to work for an hour, developing my striking and little tactics we're working for my fight in 4 weeks time. Ever since I was a kid, I was always sporty, very physical, energetic child, very competitive. And when I was 7 years old, my dad pushed me towards doing martial arts. Reason being was he wanted me to be able to look after myself, having ginger hair. You know, I was accustomed to a little bit of bullying, nothing too severe, but he wanted me to be able to protect myself, look after myself and be confident.
So currently we are working towards Tim Wilde having a fight in Chicago. Tim is a karate guy, basically he's a specialist striker. So my channel, Pro Striking, it's all about striking as a whole package. Me and Tim have known each other now for about I've known him for a long time actually, but we've only been working together for about the last 18 months. One of the most important things for me as a coach, coming from like a Muay Thai and Thai boxing background, is that I didn't try to turn Tim into that. So when Tim first came to me, he had a bit of like maybe what would be described as an unorthodox style.
I started Shotokan karate when I was 7 years old, and reluctantly really, I didn't really enjoy it. I just went because my dad made me, and that kind of changed over the course of around a year to 2 years, whereas actually I started to see the competitiveness in Shotokan karate, and I could see that there was a route for me to compete in that sport, and also I naturally just took to it quite quickly, so I started to enjoy it. And I think by the time I was 11, 12, I started competing nationally, internationally. It took me to places like South Africa, Ukraine, Denmark, all around the world competing. And I did karate for nearly 10 years, from 7 to about 17, 18, 10, 11 years I did it for, and I loved it. And it's ended up being a fundamental base to my MMA striking style that I have today.
Being a striking specialist, his prerogative is to keep the fight on the feet. He's always looking to keep the fight standing. He has to therefore change some things because a karate style, the way he stands, the way that he's been taught as his base martial art, is a little bit maybe different to what he would need in order to compete competitively as an MMA fighter. It's gone are the days now of the early 90s where guys could come in with a gi or one boxing glove. Now everyone's really complete. So just to have one martial art as your base is not good enough anymore.
As I did karate from the age of 7, it's kind of it's ingrained in me to enjoy and to fight at distance and range. It's a very, I find it to be, for my opponents, a very annoying style because I engage on my terms and I tend to control the range very well in my fights. And I think I'm really glad that I've integrated that into my style, and it's become my fundamental base to my striking. And the coaches I've worked with all over the years have never tried to pull me away from that. So even today, 10, 12 years into my MMA journey, karate is a very strong part of my base. And I think there's been some seriously high-level, successful MMA fighters that karate's been a big part of their base. Actually, Lyoto Machida, to name one, he was the exact same style karate as me, which is Shotokan karate, and then Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, a lot of really high-level strikers, fighters have come from a point scoring or a karate background. So, yeah, I don't try and shy away from it, but I know my style frustrates people, and basically they end up wanting to wrestle me or shooting on me because they can't strike with me.
So now obviously Tim's training at Renegade, that's his main gym, that's where he does all his wrestling with Leon Edwards, you know, the current UFC world champion, other elite fighters in the UFC, guys like Jai Herbert, Bellator title contender Fabian Edwards, the list goes on at the gym. It's a really high caliber gym, lots of great teammates for Tim to train with, especially at the lightweight division. And Tim's had to take on board a lot of things to not only like add to his style, but also to kind of like change, and he's had to adapt to the rule set that he's fighting under. So because of the takedowns, because of the fact that he can get kicked in the leg, and because of a lot of guys looking to use the cage to hold him down, you know, to rest him against the cage, keep him on the floor, you know, he's had to learn and change some things in order to be able to like compete at the highest level.
So again, over the years, all of my coaches they've never tried to pull me away from it because I've always been successful with it. You know, it's like, why fix it if it ain't broke? So a lot of my coaches, like especially Nathan, he doesn't try and change the way I move. He doesn't tell me, oh Tim, you've got to have your hands on your temple and move like a boxer. You know, he understands that I have a longer guard, and you know, I move well and I rely on range. So really, he just tries to add bits to it, and I think that makes for a smart coach, because taking me back to square one, trying to tell me, oh, you've got to have your hands by your temples, or you've got to do this, you've got to do that, that kind of style coaching is wrong, especially at my level of where I fight now, my age and how long I've been in the sport. If you've got a raw beginner walking in day one, then yeah, you can mould them, but I'm already very established. So, as I say, Nathan Epps, pro striking, he's always just added little bits to it and always kept the karate base there and played with it.
So something I've added to Tim's game as a karate background, where a lot of the sport isn't full contact to the head. A lot of those guys don't have very good defensive boxing, so something I've spent loads of time on with Tim, defensive boxing. We've spent like 18 months now getting Tim very well accustomed with Western boxing. I think he could spar any Western boxer at 70 kilo and be competitive. I'm not saying he's the best boxer in the world, but that's added a feather to his cap on the feet, that even though he's got such a specialist base as a karate guy, he's got really good kicks, fantastic spin kicks. It's one of his better techniques, one of his more highlight reel worthy moments that, you know, you'll probably stand out from his fights. We've managed to add that extra feather that's going to, you know, enable him to compete with the guys with the hands, and obviously blend his styles together. So we've got the Western boxing approach with the understanding and awareness of his head position, how to move his head correctly, how to punch and get off of a line, how to create an angle. So rather than turn him into a Western boxer, completely changing his stance, completely taking away his ability to land kicks successfully, it's about understanding how we can make that boxing complement his kicks and how we can make the kicks almost complement his boxing, getting those things together. And the same thing with his takedown defense, it's about learning how to position his stance, how to monitor his range correctly, so that he's aware when the takedowns come in, be able to react quick enough to get obviously his wrestling in play. Obviously Tim's got fantastic wrestling, you'll probably see that in other videos. This fight camp, preparing for my Camel, going for Chicago, Mike's a really good wrestler. He's a cardio-based wrestler. You know, he brings a high volume of takedowns. I wouldn't say he's the strongest wrestler in terms of keeping someone down, but once he gets into a rhythm and a flow, he will keep shooting. He's not disheartened if a fighter can get back up. So whereas Tim might have faced wrestlers in the past that get really tired when they've taken Tim down and he can get back up, I think Mike's going to bring in the cardio aspect to the table as a problem, where Tim's going to have to be able to match and maintain that for the whole round. So I don't think we're going to see Mike fatigue unless Tim can really hurt him. So our job is to make Tim be able to punish Mike on the outside, be able to hurt him, to slow him down a bit, and obviously defend those takedowns repeatedly, because I expect Mike to be able to shoot for the full 15 minutes.
When I was 18, 19, I started working away from home. I was an electrician, working all over the country. I kind of come away from martial arts and I got into like weightlifting for a few years, but I went into competition and I kind of changed from a boy to a man then, and I did a competition and I got disqualified for knocking somebody out because karate is just a semi-contact sport. So I thought, I want to try something more full contact. So over a period of around a year, I tried boxing, tried kickboxing, and found MMA. I actually saw The Ultimate Fighter, the Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner Ultimate Fighter, and thought, oh, this MMA, I can do this. This looks easy, which obviously I was totally wrong. I transitioned into MMA when I was around 22, 23. And again, I was still working full-time as an electrician, and it was just a hobby, and just fell in love with it, and it went from a hobby to my career.
When coming into MMA and going into like the likes of Bellator now, Tim's, I think he's ranked number 10 or 11, so he's literally, 1, 2, 3 fights away from a world title shot, and the current champion is Nurmagomedov. So if you've never heard of Nurmagomedov, he's the brother or cousin of Khabib. We've obviously got Islam now, who's the UFC champion. Even though he's not a Nurmagomedov, he's a Makhachev. He's trained underneath him, all those Dagestani lineage. So in order to compete with that type of a fighter, you've got to have wrestling. You just cannot come in as a karate guy and succeed. So my role as pro striking coach is to try and put a bit more strategy into Tim's training. So over today, we've gone over loads of drills. We've gone over basically footwork orientated things. So as a karate stylist, he's got very good footwork. His in and out footwork is fast. If you go look at karate from a traditional standpoint, it's very point scoring orientated, and that serves well for MMA because if you stay in the pocket for too long, you've got a good chance of getting taken down. So we don't want to spend too much time in that mid-range. So Tim's either going to be all the way out or all the way in, and that's kind of how he's developed his style. So all the footwork drills we're doing today is how Tim can be fast and reactive to prepare for a guy ready to shoot on and to try and take him down. But also get Tim's best weapons off. So we're always working towards, well, how can we make Tim elevate his A game whilst kind of stopping a guy from getting his A game going. I think because Tim is such a high caliber opponent, there's not going to be many guys in the world that can stand up and strike with him, so he has a massive advantage on the feet, and all fights in MMA start every round on the feet, so Tim's got a little bit of an advantage there. So using his footwork, using his fast feet to nullify a wrestler's ability to be able to take him down, to have his awareness in the cage as well, managing that distance to get his kicks off, as well as incorporating a lot of Western boxing because of the way he is, because he doesn't look like the most intimidating guy. People can often underestimate him, and that's a card, an ace in the pocket that I think Tim can use in this fight.